Hey guys, this is Paul, aka Internet for Poker VIP Coaching. Today you're going to be watching some Zoom No Limit 500 live action, and I'm going to be playing two tables of Zoom at Poker Starters. And as the title suggests, it's going to be live commentary, so I'll talk about the hands as they come up, which is always very exciting and very real, like you're right in the action. First off, I want to talk a little bit about what Zoom is, or not so much what it is. If you don't know what Zoom is, it's basically like Rush used to be at Full Tilt. If you don't know what Rush is, then, well, keep your eyes open. This is going to be interesting. I want to quickly talk a little bit about Zoom, and one of the main features of Zoom is that there's rarely any table dynamics coming up. Imagine a regular table, like 6-max table, and there's oftentimes dynamics happening, such as, oh, cutoff versus button, that the button has been 3-betting me so often, like I need to start 4-betting. Or maybe I've been 4-betting him a lot, so now he thinks I'm 4-bet bluffing much, and I'm gonna cut down on my bluffing frequency and maybe 4-bet a bit lighter for value. And those types of dynamics, they pretty much never come up at Zoom. That's a feature that Zoom is significantly lacking. Because of that, there's going to be fewer reads and fewer adjustments you can make at the tables. You'll get new opponents, or at least if it's the same opponents, then oftentimes you'll get new positions with those opponents. So that there's always different spots coming up, different things you have to consider at each position. And specifically, at a normal 6-max table, the seat the fish is seated in oftentimes determines the action. Like imagine the fish sits behind you and someone raises in an early position. You're next to act. This is usually a spot where you're going to be flatting a wide range because the weaker player is left behind you to act, and you want to preferably play a multi-way pot with fish in. This creates all sorts of dynamics in the opposite sense. If someone isolates the fish, then they're going to be 3-bet lighter. And because of all these dynamics happening at a normal table, there's going to be adjustments you have to make. But at Zoom, these things really don't happen that much, or more or less just on a one-hand basis, and there's not going to be any crazy things going on, like, oh, I know he's 4-bet bluffing way too much, so I can 5-bet this 8-9, and then he 4-bet calls pocket sixes or something like that. That's very, very rarely going to happen at Zoom. And with all these things in mind, that there's less adjusting, less dynamics to consider, Zoom favors a more mechanical playstyle where you don't really care about what the other guys are doing. You're just, playing your ranges, playing your style. And, well, if someone 3-bets too much, then you probably won't notice, or you won't really care too much about it. So I made a little chart, like, if you consider playing Zoom as your main game, like what should deter you from doing so, or what characteristics make it good for you to start playing those Zoom tables. And I think if you are someone who plays a read-based approach, like for instance, say I ask you a question at a 6-max game, someone raises under the gun, you're on the button, what's your default 3-bet range? And you tell me, well, I don't know, like against some people under the gun, I think I can 3-bet 15% and really punish them, and against other people I'll 3-bet maybe just aces and flat kings because they play very tight under the gun, but still never fold 3-bets or something. So if that's your answer, that you're very aware of who your opponents are and you always make adjustments, like very, very strong adjustments like that, and you play a read-based approach to poker, and that's a very good style, which can be really good. But if you're doing that, then you should probably not play too much Zoom, because Zoom does not favor this type of style. On the flip side, if you're more of a theory-based player, like someone who knows, well, against under the gun, I 3-bet an 8% range, my 4% for value is this, and my 4% bluffing hands are those, and you maybe deviate a little bit from that on occasion, but in general, you have your ranges set up in every spot, and you know that these ranges are very solid and hard to exploit. And if that is your approach to poker, then it's probably a good idea to try out playing Zoom, because Zoom favors that kind of play style. If you're someone who tries to get a very high win rate, I don't think you should try out Zoom, because of the mechanical playstyle and that constant change of opponents. There's no big adjustments you can make, and if you can't make big adjustments, big exploits against your opponents, you're not going to get a high win rate. For instance, at a normal table, you might pick up some big reads on a weak player, such as he always bets big when he's bluffing, and he bets small when he's value betting. And against such a weak player, you can play extremely well and generate an extremely high win rate. No, you might still get those reads at zoom, but you're not going to be facing that player every hand at one table, and because of that, your win rate per hand is going to be much lower. And yeah, if you're looking for a high win rate, well, you should of course be looking for very soft games and not at the zoom tables. On the other hand, if your goal is to play a lot of hands, high volume, maybe you're going for some VIP tier, then Zoom is very good for you because at Zoom I think it's much easier to play maybe 1,000 hands an hour than at regular tables. For one, just the surface area your mouse has to go over is much smaller at Zoom because you play more hands per table, so you need less open tables, so you need less space that your mouse needs to control. And also, I feel Zoom is more forgiving when you have tough decisions coming up. Like, imagine you're 14 tabling and there's three situations where you need a lot of time to think, and, well, it's going to start beeping everywhere. But if you need more time at three Zoom tables, there's only like one table that's going to start beeping, and you can ignore the quick fold action at that one beeping table. And because of that, I think Zoom favors playing a lot of hands per hour a lot more. So those are my thoughts on Zoom, and we're going to jump into the action now. Hope you guys enjoy it. Hey guys, welcome to some Zoom live action. I didn't even bother putting up a HUD because while I do have some hands on some people, it doesn't really work out too well. So what I've been talking about for the Zoom games is that you want to play more mechanical and less adjustive style. And what I like to do in my general game plan is to raise very loose on the cutoff and button and small blind if there's people who fold too much to steal behind. And then oftentimes just have a fold to 3-bet, which is like 70-80% in some cases, which is of course not a good strategy, which could be exploited. So I'm gonna have to try in those games right now to play a little bit tighter than I usually do on the late positions for steals, because I do not have any reads, and it's entirely possible that my opponents are actually defending too loose and not too tight. So I want to try to play more or less a standard style, which I think is good, irrespective of who the opponents are. This guy's sitting short, so I'll mark him. I don't know if I can call Jack 9 against a weak unknown player. This at a normal 6-max table, I would have some reads on would quickly develop some reads on this player. Whoa. And as such would be able to make a decision there whether I can call that or maybe even 3-bet that. But at a Zoom table, I just have to play the standard route and not defend too loosely. How's the timer on these things? That was weird that I just timed out without prior notice. King Jack against like a min raise. You can call, you can 3-bet. I think it's good enough for calling, so I don't see any reason to 3-bet. I think Ace King is the go-to bluffing hand on such a board, so this is definitely a C-bet. Can't bet too much because both of them have quads, so even if you have aces here, you can't really go for 3 big streets or value. So yeah, just gonna go probably a bit bigger on the turn, like 75% pot, still more or less the best bluffing hand with a 6, not outs, but 6 really good outs. And on the river, I have to bluff sometimes. I think Ace King has a super small amount of showdown value in case he has Ace Queen, so I prefer bluffing river with King Queen instead of Ace King. Because of that, I'm going to check. And if he bets, I don't think I can find a call or a raise for that matter, because he's going to have quads too often to raise. Get a multi-way lead here. I don't think King Jack's good enough to stack off, so we're just gonna call and quad up on the turn. Bets again. I think after calling small blind, he doesn't have too many offsuit ace X, so he's not really gonna have that many flushes unless they were a flop flush. So I'm kind of suspicious as to what he has. At the same time, I don't think he's donking flop with a hand that has no heart, no nothing to go with. It could be like a queen 10 of spades, but it seems a bit unlikely. With a queen 6 against a small mid raise, I think I have to defend. On the flop, easy call, turn, I'll call again unless he bets really big. And river, I'll fold to a 3rd barrel. If he checks, these 2 options, I can check down and maybe get a thin river value bet, or I can make a small protection type bet slash thin value bet on the turn. Actually not sure what I prefer. I think I'll just go with betting turn. Just a protection bet slash maybe get value from a 10-9 pocket jacks, pocket 10s type of hand. Not expecting to get check raised much on the turn, which, getting check raised would really be bad when you have that type hand. The Jack 5 suited is a hand I would typically try to open raise to get some reads on the big blind, but here, we're playing more or less readless, and because of that, we're not going to make any loose small blind raises. He happened to have ace queen there, which is completely standard. And I actually lost almost no money against ace queen there, given we both had second pair. We got in about one pot size bet starting from the flop, which is really, really good for us. So I'm actually kind of happy. Occasionally we want to be checking back some flush draws, but don't see any strong reason to do that right there. Same here. He's kind of shortish, so again I base read that as weak. He has a lot of stars, so I'll give him the regular color. Well, I expect two pairs and straights to raise flop, so we pretty much have the nuts here. Question is, what size do you want to bet? I think it's very likely as a hand like 9-7, 8-7, which is going to call turn, fold river. So I prefer betting big on the turn here. Now this sizing against a regular, I would probably not bet the sizing because it's very difficult to size in that way with a bluffing hand, because you would be committed if he jams with any legitimate semi-bluffing hand. But against a weaker player, I think that's a good turn sizing. Like I said, because he's going to have a lot of pair plus draw hands, which will call any size bet, and will oftentimes fold river, so you want to make the river bet as small as possible. Now, this is very unfortunate. It's possibly as a hand like 10-9, maybe busted flush draw without a queen, or 4 or 7, 3 or 8. So I guess I have to fold. Just not enough hands that can really beat there. It's not really going to raise, but with so many callers, I think I have to stack off here. It's a good squeeze size, maybe 4 times is reasonable. This guy has a lot of stars as well. Ace 8 against 2.5 raise, I think we can defend that. We will be at a disadvantage post flop because, well, he's in position, he's the aggressor, he has a stronger range. But we're getting such great pot odds pre flop that I think we can defend that. On this flop, it will be great to know his c-betting frequency, because ace high is definitely a viable call here against a bet size of his. We don't have we do have some backdoor draws. We're not going to try to make too many loose plays here, read lows. I think maybe sticking to a strategy of, 2 overs, backdoor flush draw, or a gut shot minimum to play back is probably good there. Waiting for their players. Okay. I might be marking some players incorrectly. Oh, this is probably not an incorrect mark. I use pink for hyper aggressive, crazy. Could be doing anything. Oh well, second hand in a row. Could actually do the control fold to see what happens after I, fold it at the table. With a weak short stack player in the blinds, I think 3s is fine for mid position. King Jack cut over his mid position. I don't think flatting is necessarily bad, but I slightly prefer just use it as a 3-bet because I'm not too comfortable calling here. But you can call, it's fine as well. Yeah, obviously when we have King Jack suited, we really don't want to get 4-bet. But with his somewhat big 4-bet size, there's nothing we can do. Those two things were not related, but once he did 4-bet, we couldn't do anything. Also not full stacked, so give him that. Jacks again against cutoff, 100 deep I think is an easy stack off. Kitchen horror. Probably a reg. Probably a reg. 90. No, that's smaller 4-bet size. With jacks, calling is not very attractive. I don't think I can 5-bet smaller than all in. So yeah, just jam. Ace deuce in the cutoff. Yeah, that would be a hand that is probably too loose to open. So I probably should fold that. Maybe had I seen that there's 2 green spots at this table, I should have opened to 3x or maybe even 3.5, 4x. Just, more value against the weaker players. Simple. Oh. Big 3-bet sizing. This is more than 4 times the initial open. And I'm under the gun, he's cut off. So this is actually very unfortunate spot. I don't mind folding, I don't mind 4-betting. I think it's kind of close. To be honest, I don't really expect many bluffs to this size in those positions. But with ace king, it's just very difficult to find a fold here. So we'll get it in. Small open to 3-bet, cold call. What? It's interesting. I think cutoff opens, standard range. Button 3-bet's kind of wide when he uses his sizing. Fish is gonna call weak hand, so I think we have a value 4-bet against the fish and a bluff 4-bet against the other people. No, I am adjusting based on where the fish is and stuff. But yeah, I didn't say that that doesn't happen for Zoom. I just said that it's much less likely to happen. So if any of these two guys put some money, I'm obviously folding, and against the fish, I think, I'm not exactly super far ahead, but I have some value. With ace king, I think I'm committed, and to have the highest chance of getting action from worse, I think a small bet is the best course of action. Check call is also reasonable, just open jamming and, hoping he folds. Not really any better hands, but just sort of protection jamming is also reasonable. On the turn, jamming's fine, but he's probably not going to call ace queen, so it's not a value jam. And if he has king queen, I don't really need to protect against much, so I prefer check calling to stack off instead of jamming myself. Ace 10 worked out rather beautifully. I would have liked to take an out on the fish now that he's like very loose pre-flop. Ace on the river. Now he could have jacks, tens, queens. Ace queen. So I definitely think I have to jam this myself because there's a lot of potential bluff catching hands in his range. I don't exactly expect to get called by like too often here because obviously I have ace king in my range, but yeah, he has ace queen, and so obviously not getting away from that. Against weaker play opening here, queen jack, it's either a call or a 3-bet. I don't really have strong preference without knowing who the guys behind are. I think isolating as a 3-bet is generally the better play, but if your opponents pick up that you're isolating, 20%, 25% range here, then obviously they can start cold 4-betting, and that's worse than if you start calling and they squeeze because you put in more money with a 3-bet, and if you lose that, that's much, much worse. Ace queen in those positions, I think I don't need to 4-bet. Occasionally as a 4-bet bluff, it's fine, of course, but not every time. I'm queen jack on this board. I don't really see too much value, so I just played, for showdown or 1 or 2 turn or river streets or value, and that's a pretty good run out. If he checks river, I think he has either completely nothing or he has a king or a 9. If he has completely nothing, it doesn't matter how big a bet. If he has a king or a 9, he's going to call a really large river bet. So if he checks river, I'm actually going to overbet this. Now that he bets, I think just go all in. Maybe he has a queen 10, maybe he has a 9. I don't really expect him to call with much worse, but it's still the best course of action. And what did we get a call from? We got a call from a 10-9. So that's kind of good. So yeah, I'm definitely 3-betting fish preflop there a lot is good, but the problem is if the other opponents pick up that you're 3-betting too much in that spot, then it's not good. And you are sort of forced into more calls. Get a slightly less than 3 times 3-bet here. Stacks are slightly deep, which for pocket sevens is a little like 150 big blinds is more or less perfect for sevens because that's like the optimal stack size you want to have to flop the set. Because at 150 big blinds you can always get it in comfortably. With a set at 200 big blinds it gets a bit ugly. Like if I flop bottom set or middle set with the sevens, and you'll almost never have top set. It gets a bit iffy to get in 200 big blinds with a small preflop sizing. So I still decide to call, which is whatever. Don't really have a strong preference to calling or folding there preflop. I think calling is a bit loose, but can be fine. Fives, I'm actually going to fold under the gun. Yeah. Thank you for stacks. Probably a reg. Kobe Bryant as Toby Bryant, probably a reg. At 2 tables at once, so more likely. 55, playing deep. Oh, that was an interesting spot. I don't like calling big squeezes like this, because more than 4 times the initial open. When you risk so much on a squeeze, you're allowed to fold a lot, and he's not winning money on your folds because he's risking so much. But we're deep and we have 8-7 suited, so it's not a bad spot to get involved. If the button wasn't there, I would definitely call. With the button being there, who could like back 4-bet. He calls the initial raise. Then when there's a squeezer and someone calls a squeeze, he's going to back 4-bet his ace queen, his pocket nines, and that would be really bad for us when we have 8-7. And also, if the button overcalls, that's also bad for us because he probably has a hand that beats 8-7, or almost always. Pretty much impossible to have a worse hand than 8-7 in a 3-bet pot. With the queen 3, it's a bit too short for my taste to 3-bet that, but I don't mind a little 3-bet anyway. I think I can fast fold. There's currently 62 players playing. I think that's counting each player once, which means if you have multiple entries, it doesn't count them as multiples. So 62 players means maybe 120 average seats. Yeah, seats and players, I think that's the correct distinction. With the ace 8 against this guy, if we could 3-bet for value, it's a bit thin, so probably just call. Nothing to do but call, and fold river. A 40. Now we don't really have any reads on him, so if he bets kind of bigger, I'm actually very unhappy with my hand, but with the open-ender, guess I can't really fold turn. River fold, of course. If he bets 40, then we have a problem. Yeah, a6. Not that I read him for a6, but I thought his turn sizing was a little strong. And he was strong, so of course he might have a super weak betting range and just happen to have a strong hand, but somewhat confirms my read there that I had based on his bet size. Here I just opened this in mid position, which is a bit loose, but we had the big blind, so that's cool. Probably no circumstance where I get involved here, so quick fold. When there's a min raise, well, he's a lot of stars, but he's shorty, so I don't know what to give him. When there's a min raise and a call and you're on the button deep with one of them, like you should be calling a lot of hands here. Oh, come on. Why is there no timer thingy? That's so weird. I'm sorry. I'm still not very used to these tables. Should have control folded, I guess, instead of slowing down the action. I was saying that if there's a min raise and a caller, you should be calling extremely wide on the button, maybe 30%, maybe 35% hands, like King X suited, Queen X suited are perfectly reasonable hands with flat there. And you shouldn't be 3-betting too much. Like, yeah, you should have your standard versus under the gun 3-bet range, and then maybe a little bit more because there's a caller. But yeah, you should 3-bet, I don't know, not that much, like 6 to 8% maybe. But you should be calling a ton. with 8-7 here, I don't think we can c-bet, because if we c-bet this hand, we're c-betting 100%, and that is definitely too loose on a monotone board. We don't even have a gut shot. We have 2 overcards to a 5, but that's not much. So I definitely prefer giving up on the flop. You know, potentially we turn something. Potentially we start bluffing on the turn or river. But we can't c-bet that unless we know our opponent is defending too tight against c-bets. Or actually a lot of like deep spots coming up, which is very interesting. Like when you're deep, like in this situation, you should again call a lot on the button. And King 9, I feel like is a bit too weak, but I don't mind a call there. You know, a lot of people are not comfortable playing deep out of position, and if you know how to use, you know, overbets, turn raises well, and they don't know how to like check raise out of position as a preflop raiser on the turn, or how to like check overbet on the river, then you're going to be at a huge advantage using your position. And King 9 has maybe 40% equity against his opening range, and that is plenty. You know, given you have the positional advantage, that 40% equity is definitely enough to call. Here with the weaker player on the button, I don't know. Well, he's oftentimes going to be calling, and 9-7 plays okay against a loose calling range. But we're probably going to get a lot of squeezes because, you know, once the players in the pot, they're going to squeeze their King Jacks and King 10s, and because of that, I don't think I can open that. But I would love to. A7 MP. Well, players are deep. At least those 2 are deep, which deter me from raising too much there. Ace Jack. Actually, with deep blind on blind, I think a valid strategy is to develop a limping range. If the other guy is 3-betting a correct range. I'll not go into that, but I think that, you know, you're either opening just like 30% in the small blind, which means you're folding 70% of hands, which doesn't seem that good to me. Or you can, you know, try to start with a limping strategy that, you know, involves maybe 60-70% hands that are going to be limping, and of course lots of limp raises. 10-6 should be a call. Post flop, I'll just play more or less straightforward against a weaker player, you know, not doing anything fancy. I guess that doesn't make too much sense. With the gut shot and overcard to an 8, definitely gonna bet. Get some folds from ace high, from king high, from pocket 4s, and if he calls, we can value bet a 9, check on a 10, and win a lot if he checks back. He just folds. That guy has been raising a lot pre-flops, so something to keep in mind. I wanted to take a note. He's multi-tailing probably. No. Do I have to click save or something? Probably not. Ace 5 in position. Oh, it's one of those hands which is right on the edge. Like, if you raise every time with all your ace-x suited, you're raising too much in mid position. If you always fold all your ace-x suited, then you're probably a bit too tight. So kind of mix it up, or have a reason for why you're raising or why you're folding. Like, if there's only strong players behind, that's a good reason to fold. If there's a weaker player behind, then that's a good reason to raise, obviously. And in this case, we have green, and green means go. Now he's multi-tabling. Maybe I'm actually wrong about him, but I haven't seen anything that leads me to believe that he's not a weaker player, so we'll keep the note for now. He's actually playing 4 tables according to the lobby, so maybe he's... Well, if you have a short stack strategy, I guess it's not very well suited for Zoom, as you quickly get deep, as we can see. Haven't really done anything special, and I'm already deep at 2 tables. Ace Jack deep here is a great hand to 3-bet and call 4-bet. Also great hand to flat as well, but I think it should be good enough for a 3-bet. And you don't need 3-bet too small when you're deep, because you don't need to allow them to call their pocket 4s. You can make it so big that they have a tough spot with a lot more hands in their range. No, I guess some would say my 3-bet was not very big, but typically when I 3-bet in position, I go even smaller than 3 times. On this board this deep, we have a lot of nut capacity, so we want to build a big pot to potentially get all the money in. So I like starting off with a big bet here. Like in a 100 big blind situation, we would want to bet half pot, maybe even less. In a deep scenario with nut capacity, we definitely want to bet bigger. Unless we're mixing up our other ranges, so that we can have some nut flushes in our check behind range or some nut flushes in our c bet small range. But I don't think that's something we should worry about too much. He checks here, and I'm not someone who will bet 100% when check to here, but with this hand overcard back to nut flush, I'm definitely going to start betting. And in general, I think people's checking ranges are somewhat weaker, so I prefer a bigger bet. So I get more value on my ace queen, king queen type of hands. King 9 is kind of close here. I don't mind calling, I don't mind 4-betting as a bluff. I'm just going to fold this time. My button opening range is going to be... actually, I don't really know what my best button strategy here is in these games, but I think it's going to be around 60% button opens, and when I get 3-bet, I need to defend about 30% of hands, and King 9 is right in that. I say about 30%. I don't need to defend quite half my hands, but, well, I use that as a guideline. Button folds. So this is our pot. We're not going to lose this pot. Being deep, blind on blind, we definitely want to 3-bet a lot here. 5-6 is a fine hand to 3-bet. Also fine hand to call. I slightly prefer calling, but do whatever you want. He checks here, and we're gonna bet for protection / thin value from some ace highs. Probably gonna bet twice actually for value. I don't expect people to check all Jack X, and maybe not. Maybe they do not check all ace queen twice. I treat blind versus blind a lot like heads up, but a lot of people who play 6-mac do not treat it as heads up, and as such they're a bit too tight. On this turn card, we don't really have a value bet, but just given the equity we have, which is going to lead to a lot of favorable river scenarios, I think we should be betting. Don't expect to get check raised much on the turn, because obviously 6-7 doesn't check all flop, and ace deuce, he might check all flop. He does check raise, which is very unfortunate. I guess I can't really fold to that sizing. Re-raising is not something I would ever do on the turn. I would pretty much call all my straights, all my other nut hands. Here I check back turn, call a river. Checks river. This is strange. Well, overbet, that's also strange. I don't think I can turn a 5 into a bluff. I'd be bluffing a bit much because I can have flush draws and stuff. Here's a set, okay. Ace queen overbet. Well, there's a good amount of strong hands he could have, so I don't think I should call. Like Jack 9 flushes a 6. And not too many bluff hands. And a lot of the flop gut shots are gonna hit the queen or make a straight. Well, you could have ace 7, ace 9, king 9. Can definitely be bluffing. Reads would definitely be helpful if he's like an aggressive fish or passive fish or what he's doing there. In general, I think big bets from fish are strong unless proven otherwise. That's just something that is, almost always true. The fish who do make big bets as bluffs are usually the super crazy fish who don't last very long. So you're not going to play much against them. He had a set of 4s, check call, check raise. I think that's fine. I don't understand his river check though. I don't think his hand is a good bluff catcher on the river. I don't think he can check raise river for value, so that doesn't really make too much sense to me to check river in his spot. He should just value bet himself. If he thinks I have a lot of busted draws, then I guess it's okay, but if I have a busted draw, he can also just check call ace high on the river. He doesn't need to check call with a set. And we get this in. No reason to just call here. Well, maybe he has a good short stacker, but in general, like, they don't bluff here, so no reason to slow play. and he's not bluffing. Oh, that's how he keeps his short stack. Let's go. 8-4. Well, if someone raises, I don't think we should do anything. Otherwise, it's a hand I always raise on a button, but it might be a bit too loose if we don't know much about the blind's tendencies. Ace 10, 25. Woo. What? I guess we still call, even though it's a pretty big bet to call. Ace 10 is close between squeeze for value or, just call. And with our set here, oh, another caller. Well, I don't think we can stack off on a flush board for over buy-in with a set. Oh, what the He c-bets multi-way. Heads up, I wouldn't fold ace higher, but multi-way, I think we can fold this. I don't think we can raise. We just isolate ourselves against flushes. If we raise, there would be a lot of protection in raising. I understand that, but I just think we have to play our hand more or less like a top pair here. It's 100. Looks like aces with a flush draw. We're bottom set. Call. Well, this guy never has a nut flush. This guy probably doesn't have a nut flush. But they might both have lower flushes. So again, I don't think we can raise. This is so silly. Yeah, can't raise. Hope river is a 5. Not comfortable in any other card, really. Well, one thing is for sure that the ace of diamonds is out there. Threes. I don't think anyone has a 3 here. Oh, 400 now. What? I don't think we can call here. His sizing plan is so strange with the big preflop raise, the tiny turn bet, the somewhat large river bet. What? Well, this guy must have a flush. This guy also must have a flush. This is so strange. Actually, really want to think about the ranges before I fold here and there's a showdown, but I don't want to waste anyone's time. The thing is that 2 or 3 flushes here. Oh, come on. Oh, I'm so bad at this. Let's see. Next hand, last hand, what do I need to do? King, no. So bad at using star software. There we are, not flush. 2-3, 2-3, what? 2-3? Well, I'm certainly not getting something here. What? How did they call? Like, his call on the button is ridiculous. His flat from the small blind is ridiculous. Both of their flop calls are completely ridiculous. Their turn calls, I guess, are somewhat okay. But, yeah, still very loose. They're drawing dead against a flush, obviously, and against other alleged hands, they're not in good shape either, so both of their turn calls, well, their turn sizing was really small, so I guess it's okay. And river, yeah, I don't think anyone should put in any money on the river without a flush, and maybe not even without a nut flush, given how many people there were in the pot. With ace king here, I don't want to check fold, so I think I'd rather use it as a c-bet bluff. That was a strange hand. River 5 or river whatever gives them trips would have been good. 2 or 3. I don't think we can 2-barrel on a 3 hard board without a hard too often. It would just make our range too bluff heavy. Like, we can use Jack 10 and the likes, but not a hand without any outs, really. And we have to check down on the river, of course, and we split. That's pretty good. He actually called ace queen there. which is fine, but I think it's a little bit ambitious to call ace queen against an under the gun range on that board. I don't mind a bluff raise, but I definitely, well, it's okay. He can float that. Just a little bit surprised. Jams. Oh, so big. Well, the previous hand with aces, he 4-bet small. So when he jams, he's probably on a pocket pair or ace queen, ace king, ace 10, ace 9. It's like half a bind though, so it's a pretty big jam. I don't want to fold. Might be too loose, I'm not totally sure. I can definitely discount aces, kings, queens, maybe ace king when he directly jams there. With the king 10, a protection bet on the turn is reasonable, but I think there's going to be a good amount of turn check jams by draws as well as queen x kings, so I don't want to face a turn check jams, so I go the route of just showing it down. Call a river bet, maybe make a river bet. Yeah, I can have jack 9, king jack, ace jack, so if he has ace high, he has a reasonable river bluff catcher, so I think I can value bet here. If you check raises river, that would suck. I think I have to fold with the king 10 if he check raises. It's one of the worst hands I'm value betting there. Well, it's one of the only hands really, so maybe not. But we could have some flushes that check back turn for the same reason we check back king 10. So I don't think I have to call the river check raise with that hand. He's thinking about what to do on this flop. Might be a king or a hand like pocket queens. That's a very, very weak read, of course, but, you know, trying to interpret his timing a little bit. I don't think we can do anything with 8-5. I guess I don't mind like a small raise or a float, but I think it's a bit too loose. Both of those are a bit too loose. There's no guarantee that he's going to fold ace high to a turn bet or ace high to a flop raise. $48. That's a very big 3-bet size, but we're deep, so I don't mind a bigger 3-bet size. I still think this is too big, but it's okay. Nothing I can really do much about, except, win more when I have a strong hand. It's kind of close between checking down, realizing my showdown value against, just hands he gave up with, or, protection betting / turning it into a bluff. Not really turning it into a bluff on the flop because he's not folding a pair that's better on the flop. But potentially, like, if the turn is a 7-8 or a flush comes in, like, then what, 2-barrel, 3-barrel? Turn, I think. Not very happy about it, but got a call. You could have any type of queen jack, queen 10 hand that gave up on the flop, jack 10, whatever, anything really, and then he bets turn. Maybe he picked up a flush draw, maybe he just bets turn for, because I check back. And river, I can't make him fold pocket 7s, pocket 8s. I mean, I could try, but it's unlikely. I also won't get a call from ace high, so very easy check. He has ace 10, which is a little bit of a silly turn bet by him because not really going to be folding anything that's better. Not going to be calling a range where he can make it a value bet. Still don't mind his play. Just protection bet turn, maybe I fold some hands with equity. I'm going to be calling the 8-9, 10-9. When he raises smaller, you should be calling a lot on the button. 10-9 off might be too weak, not totally sure. 10-9 suited is definitely a call. Queen 10 off, also call. 10-9 off, a bit weak. He checks here. I think he's going to be check calling ace highs a lot, but we have a good amount of equity against those, so I think just betting is good. Actually, if he is a good short stacker, which I'm more and more thinking, well, he folds here, so maybe not. If he actually is a good short stacker, then there's actually a somewhat high probability that he's going for a check raise on the flop with a hand like pocket eights plus. In which case, I should obviously not bet. He just check folds though, which is a little bit surprising. Nothing super strange or anything, but most hands you raise in the cutoff are going to be overcards. Well, pretty much all hands, so it's kind of weird not to see a c-bet or a check call or check raise bluff there. I checked only with the 8 because it's too weak to bluff. I would be bluffing way too much on the river. I think with 8 high I do have a bluff. I want to represent like a 6 which goes within value or some sort of random jack X that are rivered. So I think like half pot is reasonable. He folds, which was presumably a better hand, so that's pretty good. 9s, c-bet for value. On the turn I don't think I can bet for value really, so we're just gonna have to check and actually hoping he checks behind, but if he bets, then of course I'm calling river. I think I'm not beat by anything really. 10x is not in his range. I mean 10-8 of hearts, that's possible. Otherwise I do have the best hand. You're pretty much always in as such. I'm just gonna value bet. He has pocket pairs below the 8. Ace highs. Now if he folds all those ace highs, pocket pairs, then I have a very profitable bet check bet bluff line. So I don't mind, if you think my value bet is too thin because of that, I don't think so. Slash, if it is too thin for value because he folds too much, then my bluffs are going to show a lot of profit. Wasn't this the guy who was with the nut flush in the other hand? It's so difficult to take notes here. Or I'm just not very good at it. I do a small 3-bet in position. Pocket 8's not the ideal hand to do it with because you get flatted, and then pocket 8 gets a lot of very ugly flops to play with that. One pot size bet behind you. Ace high board. What do you do? In this case, I get a really good flop. Still gonna try to rep some air, which is gonna be bet folding. Very unlikely that I would bet fold this flop, but if he has ace 6 or so, I want to give him the option to do what he did. Or pocket 5s. He's here with the super deep stack, so yeah, I think he was the guy who did have the nut flush there. I think he's kind of random. Now what does random mean? Random means, of course, not a good player, but also not a bad predictable player, but someone who plays well in some spots and makes unexpectedly thin value bets, but in other spots, messes up completely. So someone who maybe read a poker book but doesn't really understand it still applies some concepts. That's what I think he is. I could be totally wrong. Let me check this flop. I don't think I can value bet. I don't think I can set up good value opportunities on future streets. Like if a 10 comes, he's not gonna spew all his money in with worse hands, and backdoor straights are hard to come by. So I guess just check and play it for one thin straight of value on the turn or river. With this turn card, maybe not even one straight of value. You could check so quickly. Pocket kings probably think about it. A queen probably thinks about it on the turn, so I think I can value bet here. Gotta, for these matters, a small 3-bet here with ace 5. Well, I think we should call. Not excited, but we have some flush potential, which is really good if deep. Nut flush potential is always very good when you're deep because of the chance you make flush over flush. For 200 big blinds, that's always really good. Right. Well, I guess Zoom also has really good properties when it comes to finishing videos. I can just stop at any time because hands happen so quickly. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. Hope you guys enjoyed it. This was Paul, aka Internet, for Poker VIP Coaching. Good luck, guys.